I just got an urge to join the Navy.
You're being brainwashed!
Yeah, probably. Yvonette Niage.
If you watched a lot of Simpsons growing up, you might remember that episode. It satirised how militaries use popular culture as a recruiting tool, with the United States Navy releasing a music video containing subliminal messages, like a flash frame of an Uncle Sam poster, or the song's chorus, Yvonette Niage, being "Join the Navy" in reverse. It seems far-fetched, but military bootprints can be found across popular culture, camouflaged as content. They provide locations and assets for movies and music videos, they compete in CrossFit and parachute competitions, and the army even has a sort of roaming boy band. But in the context of shrinking armed forces and misrecruitment targets, some countries like the United States have begun exploring a new entertainment market, one with 57 million fans nationally and 495 million worldwide. Esports.
Let's go! The U.S. Army Esports program is connecting America to its Army through the passion of gaming.
So now Uncle Sam has a new strategy, going not just online, but into video games.
The US Army esports team was first unveiled on January 25th, 2019, with more than 6,500 personnel applying for just 30 roles in the program. By July 3rd, the team was active, attending conventions, debuting a mobile gaming trailer, and engaging with convention goers at Salt Lake Gaming Con. The Army established early on that the team were not recruiters, however players would be receiving a crash course on Army enlistment programs and would often be joined by recruiters at public events. At the same time, the team also launched a substantial social media presence, and though growth was initially sluggish, on the 30th of June 2020, their metrics did this. It happened because of this tweet. The US Army had been publicly talking to Discord on Twitter, asking for a plushy version of the company's mascot, the Wumpus, but that's not really what's important here. What is important is that when Discord said they'd look into it, the US Army esports team replied with uwu and some love hearts. That tweet was met with a lot of backlash, uwu generally being a cute but cringy emoticon used for smug or happy reactions. Twitter users were quick to mock its contrast with an inherently aggressive state military. Two themes of criticism quickly emerged. The first was that using esports for recruitment was dishonest, with recruiters who were assumed to be closer to middle-aged, poorly appropriating internet culture to encourage young people to enlist. The second attacked the US military more broadly, particularly regarding US war crimes. That trend then spread to the team's Discord server, becoming a short-lived meme where people would speedrun receiving a ban by posting links to the US war crimes Wikipedia page. In early July, the server was locked, and at time of writing, the team's Discord is still closed to the public. Despite the backlash, recruitment through video game communities is still a very appealing prospect for most militaries, especially those that have had such success with them in the past. In 2002, the US Army practically invaded the Electronic Entertainment Expo to make an announcement that would reshape their approach to recruitment to this day. A first-person shooter creatively named America's Army. America's Army was a breakaway success, not just doing well by the standard of a military-developed video game, but proving popular in its own right, signing 9 million players in its first 5 years of release. But more importantly, from the Army's perspective, the game was an incredible marketing tool. A 2003 study found that America's Army was the 4th most popular reason for favourable awareness of the Army amongst US citizens. And the year after the game released, a quarter of the freshman intake at New York's West Point Military Academy had played the game. Best of all, the game only cost a fraction of the military's annual recruiting budget, running an average of $3.28 million per year compared to an overall annual budget of $8 billion. America's Army was the height of a short-lived boom in military video games, spawning several sequels as other countries developed their own equivalent games. In 2001, a Syrian shooter called Under Ash placed players in the role of Palestinian soldiers opposing Israeli occupation, and 2 years later, in 2003, the Lebanese Hezbollah party would echo their sentiments in Special Force, another FPS set against the Israeli Defense Forces. And more recently in China, the People's Liberation Army released Glorious Mission, a linear shooter similar to the West's Call of Duty franchise. But if video games were already such an effective recruitment tool, why is the US Army even looking at esports? A lot of it has to do with how the landscape of video games has changed over the last 10 years. The popularity of titles like Minecraft have paved the way for games with more vibrant and cartoonish aesthetics, and first-person shooters have drifted from portraying modern conflict to exploring historic wars or trialing new mechanics in hypothetical futures. The nature of modern conflict has also proven difficult to translate into enjoyable gaming experiences. Enemies are often hidden amongst the populations they live in, and wars are ideally fought before they even happen. Representing those kinds of conflicts in an entertaining video game experience is difficult, and only more recently have games like 2019's Modern Warfare returned to exploring the grey of modern-day scenarios. Whilst these fresh trends have been great for gamers, they're less favourable for militaries, who benefited from the associations players would make between virtual soldiering and the real thing. And whilst gaming may have changed, the need to recruit new soldiers hasn't. In 2018, the US Army fell 6,500 recruits short of its 76,500 goal for that fiscal year, the first time they'd fallen short of their target since 2005. In an interview with Stars and Stripes, Major General Joe Calloway said the loss wasn't devastating, but that the missed target would be felt in critical specialities that soldiers now wouldn't be filling. The same article also points out how narrow the current recruiting pool is, with only 30% of Americans between 17 and 24 years of age meeting the baseline requirements for military service, and only 13% of that population having any interest in serving with the military at all. The United Kingdom has seen similar stagnation, with the British Army admitting that it was years off full strength even after a substantial recruitment drive in 2019. In the face of these figures, esports holds a lot of promise for military recruitment. America's domestic esports audience consists of 57.2 million people, and COVID-19 aside, the global audience for esports was forecast to reach 495 million people by the end of 2020. The big appeal of esports is its demographic overlap with army enlistment ages. 62% of US esports viewers are aged between 18 and 34, and the US Army accepts ages from 17 to 35 years old. But these demographic crossovers haven't made the reception to the US Army's team any less hostile. Interestingly, the Army launched a Warrior Fitness CrossFit team at the same time as their esports division that has so far avoided the animosity seen from the gaming community. Not to mention the long-standing competitive parachute and marksman teams the Army's operated since the 50s and 60s. It's also not the first time that a state military has created an esports team. In 2007, the South Korean Air Force created a professional StarCraft team called Air Force Ace, which improved perceptions of the military amongst young people in South Korea, and fans seemed genuinely sad to see them go when they disbanded in 2014. So why is it that the United States military is meeting so much resistance to their team only 6 years later? A lot of it has to do with the team's use of Twitch and Discord. Never before has a military program had more intimate and continuous access to its target demographic. Now recruitment material isn't just reserved for large events and competitions, but can be delivered into people's homes at any time of day. That's not a particularly worrisome issue for mature adults, but there are concerns about how young of an audience might be exposed to military material through their digital platforms. Army streams are typically marked mature, technically limiting them to viewers over the age of 18, but these systems are easy to lie to, and it's generally accepted that younger people are operating across these platforms.
This amendment is specifically to block recruitment practices and funding for recruitment practices on platforms such as Twitch.tv, which are live streaming platforms that are largely populated by children well under the age of military recruitment rules.
It's not that the Army's directly targeting minors, but some might argue that not enough is being done to protect them, a criticism that was levelled at the British military in 2019 when they included a gaming edition of their magazine The Locker in with physical copies of PlayStation magazine. A Ministry of Defence spokesperson pointed out that the average age of a PlayStation magazine reader was 18, but averages far from guarantee that some readers aren't significantly younger. More recently though, both the Army and the Navy have been locked in bigger debates surrounding free speech on internet platforms. As references to war crimes became more prolific in their chats, the Army and Navy began banning certain individuals and blacklisting terms like war crimes and variants of it from their feed. The case was escalated when activist Jordan Ull attempted to highlight what he felt were ignored comments about PTSD in the Navy's Twitch chat, but was banned before he was able to send the message. For a standard Twitch streamer, banning users is well within their rights regardless of reason, but as military-operated channels, the Army and Navy streams should in theory uphold First Amendment rights. This was the argument put forward by the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, who wrote a letter on Ull's behalf, arguing that when the government intentionally opens a space to the public at large for expressive activity, it has created a public forum under the First Amendment, and it cannot constitutionally bar speakers from that forum based on viewpoint. Initially, the Army defended its stance, with Army Recruiting Command spokesperson Lisa Ferguson telling Military Times, following the guidelines and policies set by Twitch, the US Army Esports team banned users from its account due to concerns over posted content and website links that were considered harassing and degrading in nature. However, it seems they eventually backed down, telling Vice's motherboard that the Army was reinstating access for accounts previously banned, and that the team was reviewing and clarifying its policies and procedures for the stream. On the 14th of August, the US Army ended a more than month-long streaming hiatus with a Just Chatting stream with Sergeant First Class Jones, the non-commissioned officer in charge of the Army Esports program. The stream opened with a Q&A session where Jones tried to clarify certain criticisms levelled against the team.
That's another one. So there is zero way to enlist into the Army for the US Army Esports program. If someone is looking to enlist in the Army because of gaming, you're definitely wrong. You should definitely not do that.
The message seemed to be that US military esports teams are meant to be more of a first exposure to the idea of a military career, rather than getting you to stamp the form and get on the bus. But that tone isn't clear in the team's messaging. The Army's YouTube trailer ends with "Do you have what it takes?" and the Navy's Twitch About page initially read, "Other people will tell you not to stay up all night staring at a screen. We'll pay you to do it." That has since been changed, but it clearly shows that Twitch being just a taster to the military world and not a point to sign up from is a change of direction and not their intention from the start. It's also hard not to draw overlaps between Army Esports' digital branding, their involvement in video games, and the Army's current recruiting drive called Watch Your Warrior, which places viewers on a choose your class style page that distills Army careers into game-like roles like techie, mechanic, or wordsmith. It wouldn't be the first time the Army has intentionally blurred the lines between military media and military reality, an infamous example being around the film Independence Day Resurgence, which created web games that initially seemed to be assigning players a role in the movie's fictional Earth-space defense, before eventually matching them to a role in the actual US Army. The British Army also recently met resistance to a Snowflake campaign that drew arguably stretched parallels between the habits of young people and military skills. But the promotion was followed by the Army's biggest recruit influx in years, seeing 16,000 new applications in January 2019, up twofold on the previous year. So it would seem overlapping screens and soldiering is a very valid recruitment strategy even in the face of some criticism, and with esports appearing to be a huge area of growth, it's unlikely that the US Army and Navy are going to give up on its potential just yet, though their approach might need some adjustment. But other military teams have managed to find that comfortable balance between entertainment and promotion, and to their credit, internally the US military have used video games to extremely positive effect, such as VIRT, virtual reality exposure therapy for veterans with PTSD, or the Elite Sharp Command Team Trainer, an interactive video game launched in 2016 to teach higher ranking officials how to handle sexual assault amongst their troops. Whether esports can be deployed for the same healthy good the Army has seen with other video games remains to be witnessed, but this recent relaunch from the Army's team may well decide if militaries become a mainstay of the esports community, or if the internet proves too harsh for even a military to conquer.